Our guest in studio, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster for PBS flagship WNET, Steve Adubato, is joining us in studio. Now, tonight, you can hear his exclusive interview with Governor Christie at 9 p.m. at 77 WABC.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here on the ride home. It's the best ride home around. I'm excited.
We agree, by the way.
Yes, we think so.
Of course you agree. You couldn't argue that. I will tell you, I cannot imagine a more news-packed hour with the governor tonight. It's on the PBS side, WNET, NJTV, along with NJ.com, streaming it live there as well. But 9 o'clock right here, 77 WABC, it can be heard right here on the radio. And I will tell you, while we had all kinds of issues to talk about with the governor, we were going to be talking about issues dealing with, you may have heard about Bridgegate. We may have talked about that. We may have talked about the pension crisis in New Jersey, the job situation, whether there was going to be a gas tax to deal with the roads and bridges falling apart, all kinds of interesting issues, the 2016 situation. Maybe he would announce tonight all of a sudden.
Well, what do you think? You know him. Do you think he might run?
I know he's running.
Oh, you know he's running.
I know he's running.
I think so, too. I think he's an interesting candidate, by the way.
He's going to be, and for those who think that, listen, I get the whole Jeb Bush thing. I get, they come from the same part of the party. They're moderates. They look at the same, donors. I know Chris Christie. He says, bring it on.
Well, you know what's interesting about him? He is a tough on crime guy, and I want to stay focused, of course, on crime because that's such a big story today. I can't wait, and I hope I'm sure you're going to ask him because you're a great interviewer, Steve. I'm curious to hear what's going to happen in New Jersey, because in New York, the big news today is that now cops are having to go on patrols with extra folks with them. They've got to do 2 or 3 officers with them. They're also having extra security outside their own precincts today. What's happening in New Jersey?
First of all, the situation in New York, the situation with all law enforcement professionals is just unconscionable. The idea that our law enforcement professionals would be targeted in this way, the idea that all of us would not come together and understand that they are targeted, that there is clearly open season on cops, is disgusting to me. And the idea that there would not be the same kind of vitriol, the same kind of reaction, the same level of protestation and demonstration, I don't get. That's what's happening in New York. But I'll tell you what, the cops I speak to in New Jersey, they want to be a part of this fight. And they, look, in Newark, where I'm born and raised, they are just as at risk in Paterson, in Jersey City, in Atlantic City, mostly in urban areas. But I will tell you, that pain and suffering that cops are feeling for the 2 cops who are assassinated here in New York is felt across this country. And Governor Christie will be talking about that tonight. I promise you I will ask him, what do you think, Governor Christie, of Mayor de Blasio? And do you think Mayor de Blasio, together with his compadre, if you will, Al Sharpton, has in fact created an environment? They're not responsible for it, but have they created an environment that for some wackos out there, they think it's okay to do this sort of thing and may encourage them?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he says because, I mean, of course, Sharpton and those guys are distancing themselves and saying, well, it's just a lone guy in a random. But a lot of people are saying that they fueled the flames. And sometimes...
Including Rudy Giuliani, who was very close to Chris Christie.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he says about the Giuliani-de Blasio battle, too.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask him about that. And I will ask him, to go back to the point about Joanne Chesimard, here's the short version. Talk about cop killers.
Yeah, give us the background, too, for our listeners, because that was a very high-profile case, but it's this woman who's been there in Cuba.
1973, a state trooper is killed, assassinated in cold blood. Joanne Chesimard is part of a black radical movement where they frankly were targeting cops. A cop is killed. He's killed with her gun. She is, in fact, convicted of the crime. She escapes from prison before she is starting to serve a life sentence. Where does she go? Cuba. She changes her name to Assata Shakur. She is Tupac Shakur's aunt, if you will.
Right.
Cuba takes her in and says, we'll take you in as a political prisoner, asylum. And so Obama, the president, cuts this deal. Okay, great. You want to normalize relations? Well, then for those who are cop killers, convicted cop killers, how could you not say that she has to come back and face the music and face her time in prison? The president never did it. Chris Christie saying you have to do it.
So what's the latest? Actually, fill us in.
The latest is that we just got, in fact, from Chris Christie's communications director, just sent me information they got officially from the Cuban government. They basically said, we have a right to protect political prisoners. We have a right to keep her asylum, if you will. We are not sending her back. No way, no how. There is no extradition agreement between Cuba and the United States. The president has said nothing on this, I believe.
Right.
When we talk about this tonight with Chris Christie on PBS and more importantly for here on WABC, the president's going to have to talk about this. Chris Christie's going to put a lot of pressure on the Obama administration tonight.
He's going to have to, especially if he wants to get elected, because this is going to be, first of all, the whole cop killer to begin with. But this is going to be the kind of thing that people are going to be looking to him specifically to be a leader.
Look, the irony of these two cops assassinated here in New York, and in 1973, a state trooper killed in cold blood, and the killer goes to Cuba. And hides out for all these years, 40 plus years, right? And then we cut the deal with Cuba, normalizing in quote relations, and you're not going to have her come back and serve her time? No, Mr. President.
No.
You normalize relations after she serves her time.
That's right.
Chris Christie will be talking about that tonight.
Well, it'll be interesting to get his reaction, and also about all the security issues happening all over the country, and especially here in the tri-state area in light of these horrible shootings.
And
this
that's tonight
weekend.
at 9 p.m., 77 WABC, right here, exclusive.
Exactly. Can't wait to hear it. It should be terrific. And Steve, thank you so much for joining me and Cooper here in the studio. We really appreciate it. And we can't wait to listen to you guys tonight. I love Chris Christie, so it's going to be great to hear you.
Thank you for being our partners tonight.
Thank you. It's wonderful to have you. And again, PBS at 8 o'clock, and also right here, nowhere else, at 9 o'clock on 77 WABC.